Hello there, so here's Evandro Hoffman, and today we're going to be talking about how to integrate Lottie animations to our iOS apps. If you go to their documentation in GitHub, so it's github.com Airbnb Lottie iOS, and you navigate over there, there's going to be a few instructions on how to install it. Today we're going to be using CocoaPods, but like if you prefer, you can also use Carthage and also Swift Package Manager. Like there are a few different ways of doing that. CocoaPods is the most used one in the community, so we're going to be using that one today. So I'm going to start by opening my Xcode and then create a new Xcode project. Then go to iOS, select single view app. Then here I'm going to just put the name of my app, Lottie tutorial. And this is just make sure that this is in Swift and that the user interface is storyboard. We're not going to be using Swift UI for this one. Okay, so just create. And once you have your app created, you're going to see that you already have a few configurations over there. I always like to start my apps by doing a very simple cleanup in the files here, so that we can make sure that we can scale it a little bit more organized. I'm going to start by adding a new group without folder. This one used to be a very used one. I'm going to name it as supporting files, and this used to be a very common folder in the previous versions of iOS, but eventually they just removed it. Well, we're going to add it back just so that we can organize these things. Like the advantage of creating a folder, a group without folder, means that they're not going to change the structure of these apps in the root folder. So they're going to remain in the root folder. For the rest, we're going to actually create folders. So I'm going to go in here and then just say new group from selection. I'm going to call this guy, you see that like for the first time, after you create something without folder, everything is going to be without folder as well. So I'm going to remove them from here. And just to make sure that we don't have this kind of issue, I'm going to just create new group with folder, call it modules. I like to create a modules folder so that I can organize all my views inside of it. So I have it inside here. And then finally we have assets. Right now there is only one. Maybe there is no point in having a folder, but I'm going to create one because we're going to put our animations inside here as well. So I'm just going to come here and then new group from selection, and this is going to be called assets. So it's the same thing. Okay, so now we have like this very basic organization in our project. We can go ahead and just close it. So we're not going to be using that right now. And then we can open the terminal in your Mac. And what we're going to do here is navigate. Let me just open the folders here. And we're going to navigate to our folder where we created our project. We're going to say CD here, drag and drop, and then enter. And then in here, we're going to touch a file. So we're going to touch pod file like this. This should create a small file inside of our root folder in our project. And this root folder here, this file has no extension, as you see. I'm going to open it with my text editor. You can just double click on it and then it's going to open with the default one. I usually like to use either Xcode or Atom to edit this kind of files. Atom is a little bit better than Xcode for this kind of files. So I usually like to use that with that. And in here I'm going to just configure my platform, my CocoaPod, and to do that I'm going to add platform. The platform is going to be iOS, so this is just for the compiler, like in case the library actually supports different platforms. This is how you set. And I'm going to create app for iOS 13 and plus. If you support actually apps like I don't know, iOS 10, you can just change it here. And what changes by doing this is that the libraries that you're going to get are compatible with this version that you put on the top. So yeah, just be mindful about that. Well, I'm going to just put here the name of the app that I chose. So like just to confirm here. So the name of the app, Lottie tutorial. So this is the target that we're going to be copying our files to. And I'm just going to say do. And then like here, I'm going to say pod Lottie iOS. So like usually for a new app, I don't create this file from scratch. I just copy and paste from another project that I've done before. But like this time I just wanted to do it like step by step. Okay, once I have it done, I can already close this file. We're not going to use this anymore, but just to understand that this is the target, and inside of the target, we're going to be adding the Lottie iOS. And there is some magic in CocoaPods, if you worked with it before, that is going to just go to the right repo and then pick the current version for us. Okay, so here we're going to go back, make sure that you are in the root, and we're going to type pod install. For this, you need to have CocoaPods installed in your device. Okay, there is a problem. Let's go back there. Oh, I think it's because of this space. It has to be the opposite. Yeah. Okay, now we can do that. Yeah, that was it. So like as soon as it's done, you can see that it installed the Lottie iOS, and then like there's some green stuff, like whenever it's green is good. So no problems here. And we also see that it created 2 new files, actually 3 new files. One is the folder with all our libraries. Right now we're just using Lottie, and also the workspace. From now on, when we're using CocoaPods, we're always using the workspace. We never open the project using Xcode Proj. So let's open the workspace, and what's going to happen here is that we're going to have now 2 targets, one for the pods, one for the tutorial for our project. And if we just like right now hit Command B for building, it should just build everything correctly if we didn't make any kind of mistake. So we do that, and let's just make sure that everything is working properly. Okay, everything builds succeeded, no problem. So we're going to proceed by going to View Controller. Then we're going to import Lottie here, and then see if we have any kind of issues. Again, just build Command B again, just to make sure that your app is supporting Lottie. If no problem, if it says succeeded, it means that we successfully imported Lottie to our project. Okay, so now we're going to run our application. You can run from here or just Command R, anywhere that you prefer. We're going to open the app. I'm selecting my iOS device. Instead, let's just do it here. Build the project again, and this should start running, but like of course we didn't do anything in our project. It should be just blank iOS app, and that's it. No such module. Like sometimes Xcode is a bit crazy, but there's no issue there. It's just Xcode being Xcode. Okay, so we have our empty application in here, so everything is okay. So what we're going to do now is actually create our very first Lottie animation. For the purpose of this tutorial, I already downloaded a couple of animations that I want to work with here, but you can go here to LottieFile.com, and then you can search for different animations. I'm going to search actually for a coffee animation. It's in the morning here, so I want to have my coffee. There are a few very cool ones. I'm going to actually work with this one. So I like this one. I'm going to just come here and then download. I'm going to download as JSON. So just make sure that you have this kind of file. And now I have it downloaded. It's a bit hectic in here, so I can just go here and say by date. I'm going to rename my animation to coffee, and I already have one, of course, because I downloaded it before. So okay, so it's here. So we have our coffee animation. We can just delete the old one and then get the new one. Okay, so we have it here. What we're going to do is just drag and drop inside of our project. So we go back to the project and then come here and then drag and drop to inside of the assets folder. So this is why it's good actually to have an assets folder, because now we can organize our animations over there. Okay, so we have coffee, the animation here. I'm going to be creating views in two different ways. The first way is going to be using code. So how to do that? We just type var animation view, just the name of our view, and then we're going to call it animation view. This is a view from Lottie. I'm just going to set this as optional so we don't have any kind of issues. In the view did load, we're going to configure this guy here. So I'm going to say animation view equals to init with name, and the name is always the name of the JSON file without extensions. So in this case, it's going to be just coffee. I'm going to set the frame for this. The frame is just going to be the bounds of the super view. So the super view is going to be the view of the view controller. Then we just set it here. Then we have animation view. There are a few configurations we can do, but we're going to do one by one just to understand what they do. And here, before we proceed, we just have to add the subview. And finally add animation view as the subview, and I have to force it in here because it doesn't accept optional views in this matter. Okay, so I'm just going to run and see what's going to happen. Let me just stop twice in here because it was still running in my device. Okay, so now we finally have the animation here. You can see it's the same one as we picked, but there's one thing, it's not animating. Isn't it supposed to be an animation? Yes, it is, but we actually have to tell it to animate. And how we do that is very simple. We just go here, animation view dot play. And once you run it again, you're going to see that it's going to beautifully play one time. Right. So what if we wanted to loop? Okay, very easy as well. We can just come here, animation view dot loop mode, and then say dot loop, and then we run it again and see what happens. Yeah, so it's running like over and over again, so it's going to be like that forever. But I think it's a little bit too fast. I don't like the speed. Okay, we can change that. Very easy as well. So we can come here and we can say animation speed is going to be equals to I don't know, like half of the speed is going to be 0.5. So the normal speed is 1. Whatever is bigger than 1 is going to be faster. Whatever is smaller than 1 is going to be slower. So 0.5 should be half of the speed. Let's see how it works. And you see here now it's a lot better, like it's a little bit slower, and I like this one a lot better. Okay, so this is the first part of this tutorial. We just created an animation view from Lottie using code. Now we're going to add, we're actually going to use the interface builder to add our next one, because this is going to be a little bit more complex. We're actually going to use a progress view in our next part of the tutorial. How to do that? Okay, let's do in a few steps. First thing, we're using storyboards, so I'm going to just come here and add a button to my view controller in the storyboard. To be honest, I'm not very big fan of storyboards. I usually use zibs, and when I can, I use code because they're lighter. Even though you have one of these latest MacBooks, like Xcode sometimes can get just too heavy. So I just like to make to use something a little bit easier, a little bit lighter for the computer. So what I do here is just like open, download. So I have a button. I'm going to constrain it to the center of my view and add the constraint, and then I'm going to tap on this other guy here and then constraint like 50 pixels from the safe area bottom. Once I do that, like you're going to see that it's going to auto replace itself, and the button is there. Okay, so what happens if we run and then we try to press on this button? You see here there's no action directly to it. The problem is that our animation view is on top of our button. So what we can do in here in this case is just come back and then say view.send subview to back, and then send our animation view to the back, and then we're not going to have any kind of issues of it being on top of our button. So that's one of the tricks you can do. So you see now there is an action here, but of course we didn't configure anything. We're actually going to do something there now. And what we're going to do is just like come here, select the button like this, and then on your keyboard, Control Option Command Enter, and this should open this side view here that is actually linked to our view controller before. What we're going to do here is just go to the bottom after view did load, and then hold Control and then drag and drop inside of here, and this should give you automatically an action here. But if you don't see an action, if you see an outlet, just come here and then change to action. And what we're going to do is just say open download, the name of our function. Very, very straightforward, like nothing special. Okay, we have our function here. Whatever we run, whatever we do, like when we put inside here, when we press the button, this should be run. Okay, this is all good. We can close the side assistant and we can go back to our code. Awesome. Okay, so we have now the button action to actually open our next view. Well, let's actually build the next view before we continue. We could do that using storyboards. There are a few ways of doing that. It doesn't really matter how we do it, but I actually want to go ahead and actually build a separate view. For that, I'm going to be calling it here new group, download, and inside of download I'm going to say download view control. I'm going to create a new Swift file, download view controller. I don't really like using the templates. I always use like from scratch so that I am free to do whatever I want inside of this. So I'm just going to import UI kit, then hit class, download view controller, and this is the type of UI view controller. And in here I don't have to add anything for now, just open and close the closures, and I'm going to be using zibs for this one. So you come here again, Command N, and then go to view, and we're going to be add next, and in here I'm going to be calling it exactly the same as download view controller, then create. Awesome, we have our view with the same name, so this is a zip file. The difference between the storyboard and the zip file is that this one is a unique interface for just this view, for just one single view. And the advantage with that is that it's a little bit lighter for the Xcode. Well, what we do here, so we have the name of our class, which is download view controller. If you go to the zip and then file owner, and then you come here to this custom class. So this is called the identity inspector. So you come here, you can actually put the name of the class. So if you start typing download, you're going to see that it's going to autocomplete because we already have the file created over there. So we just hit enter, and then what we do is we hold Control, and then we drag and drop from file owner to view, and then here we just select view. So this is important because you're telling that this view controller has this view in here, and then once this happens you can go to the very last guy here, and you're going to see that view is actually connected now to this view in the view controller. Okay, this is all set. We can start creating our view, but before, let's just call it from the previous controller. So you come here, inside of this guy here, we're just going to create. So I'm going to create a view controller. This view controller is going to be of type download view controller, and I'm going to start it with a nib name. The nib name is the same name, so I can copy here, put inside of quotes like this, and the bundle is going to be automatic if I put as nil. Otherwise, if I want to specify a bundle, I can just do that like that. Okay, this is done. Now I just have to present it. So present view controller, animated true, and I'm not going to be using the completion, so I can just delete this part in here. Okay, so if we hit run, Command R or play button on the top, it should just open our animation. We have here the open button. Once we press on it, you see that it already opens the view controller on top. Of course, there is nothing there, and that's what we're going to be doing now. So you go back to the zip, and inside of this zip, we're going to be adding a couple of things. First thing is animation view. So let's come here and just drag and drop a normal UI view. So nothing special about this, like just to understand how I did that. So it's Control L, sorry, Command Shift L, and then you open this pane in here, Command Shift L, and then you can have all the files, all the possible components that you can have for a view controller, and then in here you just select the view. Like usually to identify the view is this square with the gray square with a little bit of white in the middle. So that's the one. We just drag and drop inside. So here's our view. Of course it's white. It's the same color as the background. I'm actually going to change the color of the background by clicking here and then going to Attribute Inspector, and then here I'm going to just be selecting this guy here. So it's a little bit grayish, so I have some difference now. All right, perfect. I'm going to just align it to the middle, and I'm going to constrain it to the middle. Like to do that, you just go align, and then you just put both of them, which is horizontal and vertical. Doing that, of course, it's still complaining because it doesn't know the size. So the size we're going to do like this. We're going to add aspect ratio and also width. So the width can be 240. And the aspect ratio, we're going to come back here and change it to 1:1. So I want a squared view. Oops. Yeah, that works too. But like usually I like to do like this, that it's at least it's more visible that is 1:1. Okay, so we have our animation view. Once that's done, this is just a view for now, but we have to actually make it as an animation view. For that, just go to Identity Inspector after selecting it, then go to Class, and in here you're going to go Animation View, and then hit Enter. And for some reason, it didn't change the module, and I'm going to show you what happens if you don't pay attention to that. For now, just press in your keyboard Control Option Command Enter, and drag and drop using Control. So select Control and then drag and drop inside. This is an outlet. This time we're going to be calling it Progress Animation View. Okay, so Progress Animation View, you see that here we already have the animation view, but it's going to give us an error because we didn't import Lottie. So we come here and just import Lottie. Okay, that is done. Lottie is imported. Okay, perfect. Now what we do in here is to actually, well, there are two steps. If we just come here and run, let's see what happens. Theoretically, there shouldn't be, we didn't configure the animation, so nothing should happen. Here we have already our square. Okay, perfect. We have the square, but there's no animation inside. So actually, let's add an animation inside. So the animation, you come here in the Attribute Inspector and then their animation name. Here you add the coffee animation. We can add the same, but we're going to change it in a second. So just run the project again and hit download, and you see there is no animation here. You're going to see that there is an error that this class is not key code compliant. It's not key code compliant because of something that we didn't change, which is if you go back to the module and then change and like it's empty, it cannot work like that, because like this is actually coming from a pod. So we have to add Lottie in here. It's going to autocomplete. You can just hit enter, try to run again, and once you do that, then you're going to see that the animation is getting loaded. So yeah, there we go. Perfect. Okay, so we have that. So this time we're actually going to use a progress animation. So for that, we just come here and then say, I'm going to actually use a download progress animation. And there are a bunch of them. I'm actually going to choose this one, and then I'm going to download the JSON. And in here I'm going to just call, I think I already have something called download, so let me delete that one, and then I'm going to download, and I'm going to just drag and drop these inside of my project. Just make sure every time you drag and drop, you always copy items if needed and create groups. And also, this is the most important part, targets. Add the targets, and the target should be the name of your app. Okay, this is done. This is done. What we have to do now is just change the animation name in here. So we come here and go to download. Perfect. This is done. Now we go back to download view controller, and we're going to configure. Like if we just run it right now, it's going to have exactly the same situation as the previous configuration that we were having. Nothing happens. There is no animation in here. So let's actually configure this animation. So in view did load, I'm going to just call super view did load, and after this I'm just going to start configuring. So progress animation view, the loop mode is going to be dot loop, and the progress view is going to be dot this is just going to be play. And before that, we have to remove this white background. I'm just going to say here dot background equals to clear. So I don't want a background there. The background was just for us to identify where the view is. Right, so hit download. Now we're going to have the full animation over there looping over and over again. Alright, so how would we actually use this as in progress? Like how would we make progress out of this? And now for this, what we're going to do is go back here and try to understand how this animation works. So I'm going to open it. Oh, there's a there we go. So I'm going to pause this thing and then try to understand. You see here that you have this drag and drop, this slider here that you can just check where in the animation is, and then you can identify a few scenarios, a few states in this animation. Like if you drag and drop like to 140 here, you see that the progress didn't start, but this animation in the middle actually finished. So it means that the 140 is actually the start of our animation. So we're actually going to create a state for all the frames that are important, and I like to do that by creating an enum. So I'm going to say here download frames, download keyframes, and meaning that like the first one is going to be start progress is going to be 140. So and the enum is going to be type CG float. Okay, so we have our first the first keyframe. Let's go to the next one, which is the end of the progress. So you see, go all the way to the end of the progress. So as soon as it finishes, this is 187. Okay, so we're going to come here and then case and progress 187. And there is one more interesting one, which is like the completion of the entire animation. So you see here, like if I go all the way, it resets, but I don't want it to reset. I just want like this thing to finish. so it means it's 240. 240 here. I'm going to just create one extra one, so case completion is going to be 240. So now we have the keyframes of our animation, and we're going to start using them. Well, first thing, we don't want it to loop, so I'm going to just remove this part. I don't want it to play right away. I'm just going to remove this part as well, and I'm going to create a function. This function is going to be private func start download, and our start download is going to be just actually start progress, not start down progress. And this is actually just going to show us the where we want to animate all the way to 140. So it means that we're going to animate just until here. So let's do that. Just until just before it starts the progress itself. So let's try. So here we just say here progress animation view dot play, and then if you see, play has actually a few other options. The one that we're going to use is actually there is this 2 frame that you can use in this case, or you can specify from what frame to what frame. I'm actually going to do that. I'm going to specify from this frame to the other frame. So I'm going to start with 0. This is the start of all. I could actually create another keyframe in here, but I'm just going to leave it like that. Then I can have the 2 frame is going to be the download keyframes dot start dot raw value. So this is going to get this value in here, the 140, and then finally we have the loop mode is going to be play once. There's no loop mode, and the completion block, we just double tap on it. We don't need the boolean, and we just leave it like this for now. And then we are going to call this function from view.load and see what happens. Then we hit OK. So now you see that it animated all the way to just before the progress. Okay, so now let's actually make the progress. I'm going to create another function just below it. This is going to be called start download. I'm going to use again my progress animation view dot play from to. The from this time is going to be the start of the progress, and it's going to show to go all the way to the end of the progress. So download keyframes, end of the progress. There is no loop mode, none. And then the completion, I'm just going to open it like this. Let's run it again and see. Oh, of course we have to also call this guy from here. It's never very good to have self inside of enclosure, so I usually like to use weak self so that we don't have any problem with threads. Then we just do like this, and we call it again. The only difference with the optional in here is that if, for example, this screen is no longer valid, once it reaches this point in here, it's not going to crash. So we open, and then we run it, and then we see that now it completed the progress because it ran this function here. Now we add one more, which is to finish the progress. So we're going to call it end progress, and inside of here we're going to do exactly the same thing as we did before. So it's going to say play from. The from is going to be the end of the progress, and the to is going to be completion. There is no loop mode, and the completion block, we just open it in here. I don't think we're going to use it this time. Well, this time we're going to do exactly the same in the previous one. We're just going to say with self, and then self.end progress. And then we run it again, and we're going to see that it's going to go all the way to the end this time. Perfect. There we go. So like now it's completing all the way. All right, so what if actually we wanted to use it in a real download? I'm going to add it here. You can check in the article that we're adding together, the code. I'm just going to copy so that we don't waste too much time in here. I'm just going to copy the download module. What's going to happen in here is that I just configured this download here to download a random MP4 file, and once it starts the progress, we're going to run a progress function that we're going to create right now, and then finally we're going to end the download. Okay, so this is end progress this time. For the progress, we're going to create it right now, so let's do that. Well, to create it, what we need in here actually, like if you see, if you ever worked with URL session download before, basically what it does is to actually get the file, and like part by part we're going to get the progress, and in the end it's just going to run to give us the data itself. We're not going to use the data here, but at least we can show the completion to the user. Well, let's build the progress so that the user can see actually the progress over there. So we're going to say private func, we're going to call it progress. I'm going to just send a parameter here to progress. This is going to be CG float, that is going to be coming as from the progress itself. All right, so now we have to keep in mind that our progress is in between these two frames. So I'm actually going to get the range between these two frames so that we know exactly where we are in the progress itself. So I'm going to call it progress range, progress keyframe, oops, download keyframe dot. Then we have the end of the progress dot raw minus the download keyframe dot the beginning, the start of the progress dot raw value. Okay, so this basically subtracts the last one from the first one from the last one, so it gives us a positive number, which is the range that we're going to be working with. And then we need to know from this range what is the percentage, what is the frame itself that we get. So this is going to be progress frame. We're going to just get this progress range. And we're going to multiply this by the progress, the one that is coming from, the one that is coming from the async task. Okay, so this is done. We have now the frame that that this progress is connected to, and finally we're going to add one more thing, which is the current frame. That we're going to have to put back the frame to the start, because like it doesn't start, let's say here like it's going to return us 10. It's not 10, it's 10 plus the start, which was 140. So how we do that is just current frame and then say progress frame plus the download keyframes dot in here we're just going to say start progress dot raw value. So now we have the actual frame that we have to present to the user, and we finally just say progress animation view dot current frame equals to current frame. Done. And that's basically it. What happens here is that instead of playing to the progress, we're just going to set it directly without any kind of animation. And well, now the only thing missing is that we have to call this function download. So let's come here and replace, instead of start download, we're not going to use that one anymore. We're going to start just download. And then we hit on run again. And we hit on open download. And what is going to happen here is that now it's actually going to go to download from this file in the URL, and you see that the progress is actually like accurate now. There is no animation, but even though there is no animation, because it's like step by step, it looks like it's animated. And then in the end, it just presented the completion. Well, that completes our tutorial for Lottie. I hope you liked it, and please let me know if you have any question. Thank you very much.